Most people don't wake up and decide to live a life of mediocrity. Deep down, everyone wants something: freedom, growth, recognition, purpose. We set goals, we make plans, we get inspired by stories of others who made it. So the idea that people don't succeed because they never tried is misleading. The truth is far more complicated. People do try. What they lack isn't effort, it's endurance. Trying once doesn't mean you're in the game. It just means you knocked on the door. The real test is what you do when that door doesn't open. Or worse, when it opens just enough to show you what's inside, and then slams shut. That's where most people quietly retreat. Not because they didn't care, not because they didn't have the will, but because they didn't have a clear enough reason to keep going. Purpose is the anchor. When challenges come, and they always do, the only thing that keeps you grounded is what you started in the first place. Most people don't fail from lack of ambition, they fail from disconnection. They forget the deeper reason behind the goal. They get lost in the noise, the pressure, the doubt, comparison. Without a clear why, obstacles feel personal. Purpose turns them into process. We're told to work hard, to grind, to hustle. But working hard without direction is like rowing a boat in circles. Exhausting and ultimately discouraging. It's not the trying that fails people, it's the absence of alignment. When effort isn't connected to something meaningful, we burn out. We confuse motion for progress. And over time, that kind of empty effort starts to feel like failure. Another reason people give up isn't because they're weak. It's because they were never taught how to deal with plateaus. The space between beginning and breakthrough is a quiet, lonely one. You try, you improve, and think nothing. No recognition, no results, just silence. That's when most people walk away. Not because they didn't care, but because they thought that silence meant it wasn't working. Fear plays a role too. Not fear of failure, but fear of irrelevance. What if I do all this and no one cares? What if I change and the world doesn't notice? That fear isn't trivial. It touches something deep, the need to matter. And if your only validation is external, trying becomes terrifying. People stop not because they didn't try, but because they felt invisible. Then there's the myth of timing. People wait for the perfect moment, the right mood, the right energy, the right opportunity. But waiting isn't trying. It's postponing responsibility. Life doesn't hand you permission. You take it. Trying isn't something you do once everything feels right. It's something you begin while everything still feels uncertain. Most people fail not at the attempt, but at the reattempt. Trying is easy when you're inspired. The real work begins when you're tired, discouraged, or uncertain. And that's where most people back away. Not because they didn't have what it takes, but because no one told them the doubt was part of the path. People don't fail because they don't try. They fail because they don't expect the discomfort, and when it comes, they assume something's wrong. We often look at successful people and assume something happened to them, as if fortune arrived like a surprise guest. We see the highlight, the breakthrough, the award, the moment they made it. But what we don't see is the long trail of decisions behind that moment. The early mornings, the missed parties, the uncomfortable conversations, the risks taken when nothing was guaranteed. Fortune isn't lightning. It's architecture. There's a reason people chase shortcuts. Because consistency is unglamorous. It's not dramatic. It doesn't make headlines. But it works. One small step taken with intention, repeated day after day. That's how real transformation happens. Most people aren't missing opportunity. They're missing rhythm. They're looking for a wave instead of building a tide. Intentionality is what separates motion from progress. Anyone can stay busy. Anyone can fill a calendar. But effort without clarity just creates exhaustion. Fortune belongs to those who aim their energy, not just burn it. Every step taken with purpose, even if it's small, moves you closer. People who seem lucky are often just people who decided where they were going long before anyone was watching. Courage is the silent partner of consistency, because doing the right thing day after day, especially when no one applauds, requires strength. It's easy to act with clarity when the path is clear and the crowd is cheering. It's much harder when you're walking alone, unsure if the next step will even matter. But that's what fortune respects. Not just movement, but movement in the dark. Clarity doesn't mean certainty. It means you've chosen something to commit to, even before the results show up. It's knowing the difference between impulse and intention. Fortune doesn't reward the frantic. It rewards the focused. People who build something meaningful do it with a compass, not a stopwatch. They play the long game because they're not chasing applause. They're building something that lasts. And courage, real courage, doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it's quiet, sending one more email, making one more call, staying in the room when your confidence walks out. It's not the absence of fear. It's the choice to move anyway. The most successful people aren't the most fearless. They're the most faithful to what they said they do, even when it's inconvenient. If you look closely at anyone who's built something valuable, whether it's a business, a body of work, a reputation, or a community, you'll find patterns, not miracles. Small habits, not dramatic turning points. Their fortune wasn't a door they stumbled through. It was a staircase they built, one disciplined action at a time. And each step took more commitment than applause. Fortune grows in the space between what you want and what you're willing to do consistently. There are no hacks for clarity. There are no replacements for courage. And without either, effort becomes scattered. Most people want the result, not the repetition. But the repetition is the result in motion. Motivation feels good, it fades fast. It's like a spark. Intense for a moment, then gone. That's why people chase it like caffeine in quotes and podcasts and early morning playlists. But relying on motivation is like trying to sail with wind that comes and goes. It gives you movement, not direction. What you really need isn't more fuel. It's a map. Something that tells you where you're going and why it matters. Most people don't stop because they're lazy. They stop because they're lost. They keep asking, how do I stay motivated? But the better question is, what am I anchored to? When your life is driven by external energy, applause, pressure, fear, trends, you will always feel off course. But when you have a compass, your choices align. You don't need hype, you just need orientation. A compass isn't exciting, it's quiet. It doesn't shout like motivation does. It whispers. It reminds you over and over of the direction that matters. And when the world pulls you in different directions, when distractions look shiny and detours feel easier, your compass brings you back. It's the internal guide that turns chaos into clarity. Motivation depends on how you feel. A compass depends on what you believe. When you're tired or doubtful or overwhelmed, motivation often disappears. But a compass doesn't care about your mood. It's steady. It says, you're still facing north, even if it doesn't feel like it. That's how people make it through long winters. Not with endless enthusiasm, but with a deeper sense of purpose. If you've ever started something strong and faded quickly, it's not because you didn't care. It's because you were relying on a boost instead of a belief. A boost makes you act. A belief makes you continue. And the difference between those two is often the difference between dreams and discipline. A compass reminds you of what you said yes to, and what you refuse to quit on. The problem with motivation is it makes hard things seem easy, for a moment. But real progress is built when things feel heavy and you move anyway. That movement doesn't come from excitement. It comes from commitment. When your compass is clear, the weight doesn't go away, but the reason gets stronger. And that's what gives your work meaning. Not the hype, but the hold. People often say they're stuck, but what they usually mean is they don't know what matters most right now. They're moving, but in too many directions. That's what happens without a compass. You say yes to everything and wonder why nothing feels right. But when you define your direction, your true personal north, decisions become simpler. Not easier, but clearer. You don't need to feel ready every day. You don't need to feel unstoppable. You just need to feel aligned. A compass gives you that alignment. It keeps your effort tethered to something that matters even when the emotions come and go. Because they will. The difference is, with a compass, you move anyway. Comfort feels safe, but it's rarely honest. It tells you that what you have is enough, even when you know you were made for more. It protects you from risk, from rejection, from failure. But it also shields you from growth. That's the quiet danger of a comfort zone. It doesn't kill your dreams outright. It just convinces you they can wait. And while they wait, they fade. Most people don't abandon their goals in dramatic moments. They let them slip away, one small hesitation at a time. They tell themselves they'll start next week. They rationalize that things aren't that bad. They settle for a version of life that's fine. Not because they're weak, but because their environment doesn't challenge them. Comfort rarely demands more of you. It allows you to pause and then forget why you ever wanted to move. The problem is, goals aren't sustained by what's easy. They're built in tension. The uncomfortable space where you stretch, where you fall, where you question yourself and still keep going. Growth begins the moment you stop needing to feel safe. But comfort zones are designed to keep you safe at all costs, even if it means keeping you small. And most people don't realize that until they feel stuck with no idea why. There's nothing wrong with resting. There's nothing wrong with ease. The danger comes when ease becomes identity, when you begin to equate stability with purpose, when the desire for predictability starts to outweigh the hunger for possibility. That's when dreams shrink to fit your routine. That's when you wake up one day realizing your goals didn't fail. You just stopped chasing them. Comfort zones are tricky because they don't feel like quitting. You're still thinking about it. You're still planning. You still mean to take action. But the truth is, comfort lets you pretend movement is happening when all you're doing is circling the same safe choices. And while you're stuck in familiar patterns, someone else, someone less qualified but more courageous, is stepping into what you said you wanted. Goals require pressure. They require discomfort. Not because pain is noble, but because change is never painless. You can't grow muscles without resistance. You can't grow character without friction. And you can't achieve real goals without asking more of yourself than yesterday required. Comfort zones will never ask that of you. They only ask that you stay. Most people overestimate what they can do in a burst of effort and underestimate what they can do with steady discomfort. The path to meaningful goals isn't a series of motivational highs. It's the decision to keep going when you're not sure it's working. Comfort zones don't prepare you for that. They prepare you for pause, for preservation. But goals live on the other side of risk, and risk never feels safe. The truth is, nothing new grows in comfort. Only maintenance happens there. And maintenance might protect what you have, but it won't create what you long for. Goals don't die from lack of talent or desire. They die quietly in the invisible grip of what feels familiar. We often think of discipline as restriction, as rules, limits, cold structure. But at its core, discipline is one of the most profound expressions of care. It says, I believe in something enough to protect it. It says, I won't leave my future self to suffer from my present neglect. That's not punishment. That's love. Real love doesn't just feel good. It does good even when it's hard. When you show up for yourself consistently, especially when no one's watching, you're not just being productive. You're being loyal. Discipline is a daily vote for the person you're becoming. It's not loud or flashy. It doesn't beg for recognition, but it holds the line. It sacrifices short-term comfort in favor of long-term alignment. And that is love. Not just for the goal, but for the self who will one day benefit from your effort. Love without discipline becomes fragile. It's full of intention, but lacking the backbone to follow through. That's why so many people say they want things but never move toward them. Not because they don't care, but because they haven't turned that care into action. Discipline is the structure that gives love its power. It's what turns hope into habits and passion into progress. Think of a parent waking up at 4 a.m. for a crying baby. Think of a partner choosing to forgive instead of walking away. Think of someone training every day for a future they can't yet see. None of those acts are comfortable, but they are full of love. Discipline is the willingness to endure discomfort in service of something greater than the present moment. It's not driven by fear. It's driven by devotion. Most people are waiting to feel like it. But discipline doesn't wait. It shows up, not because the conditions are perfect, but because the commitment is real. Love that only acts when it feels good isn't love. It's convenience. Discipline pushes through resistance because the purpose is worth more than the excuse. And when that kind of love becomes habit, it rewires who you are. We talk a lot about self-love, but often forget that love is a verb. It's not just how gently you speak to yourself, but how consistently you protect your priorities. Discipline is setting boundaries, saying no when it's easier to say yes, choosing effort when comfort is tempting. It's not harshness, it's honor. And the more you practice it, the more you realize it's not a burden, it's a form of respect, the people we admire most. The artists, leaders, athletes, builders, they all have one thing in common. They do the hard thing, even when it's invisible. That's discipline. And what drives it isn't perfection, it's love. Love for craft, love for purpose, love for a life that means something. You can't force that kind of dedication. You nurture it. One small, loving act at a time. It's easy to confuse discipline with pressure, but they come from different places. Pressure is external. Discipline is internal. One exhausts you, the other strengthens you. And the difference is whether it's rooted in fear or in love. When it's love, the repetition doesn't wear you down. It reminds you that you're building something sacred. Even if no one else sees it yet, transformation isn't an event. It's a structure. And every meaningful change you hope to see in yourself starts the same way, not with a breakthrough, but with behavior. Not with inspiration, but with intention. The person you want to become isn't waiting on more hype. They're waiting on more consistency. Because hype might get you moving, but only habits will keep you going. There's a reason people get fired up after a speech or a podcast, but fall back into old patterns within days. Hype is emotional, and emotion is temporary. It's useful for creating momentum, but it's not built to sustain progress. Habits don't rely on adrenaline. They rely on design. They're what you fall back on when the mood fades and real life asks you quietly but persistently, will you keep showing up? The bridge between now and next is made of small, repeated decisions. Wake up on time, write one more page, say no to the easy thing, do what matters even when no one notices. These aren't glamorous steps, but they are sacred ones, because they move you forward, even if it's just an inch at a time. Over time, inches compound into identity. That's how real change happens. Not from a leap, but from layering brick on brick. Hype promises fast results. Habits build strong foundations. One gives you the illusion of progress. The other creates actual transformation. You don't become a better leader, artist, parent, or entrepreneur in a single moment of inspiration. You become it through deliberate repetition. By rehearsing the version of yourself you intend to become until it starts to feel like home. Your habits reveal your actual priorities, not just your intentions. You can say you want to grow, but if your daily actions stay rooted in comfort, nothing shifts. The bridge to change is neutral. It doesn't care what you say you want. It only responds to what you consistently do. And if your actions aren't aligned with your vision, the gap between who you are and you want to be won't close. It will widen. Building that bridge is often boring. It's uncelebrated. There are no standing ovations for reading 10 pages or choosing water over sugar or turning off your phone when it's easier to scroll. But that's the point. Habits aren't designed to impress. They're designed to deliver. And if you give them time, they quietly rewire what you believe is possible for yourself. It's not about being perfect. It's about being honest. Honest enough to admit when your habits are serving your comfort more than your future. Honest enough to reset when you drift. And most importantly, honest enough to trust that you don't need a massive change. You just need consistent movement in the right direction. Hype will sell you overnight success. Habits will teach you the truth that character is built daily, not instantly. The life you want isn't hiding behind more motivation. It's waiting on more follow-through. It's built moment by choices that look ordinary but carry extraordinary power. Hype fades, but habits last. And the bridge only gets stronger each time you decide to take the next small step. No matter how ordinary it feels, we often hear the word accountability and flinch as if it's a form of discipline handed down by someone with authority. But real accountability isn't about blame. It's about belief. It's not meant to shrink you. It's meant to support you. It exists not to catch you failing, but to remind you what you said you cared about when things were clear and emotions weren't clouding your commitment. When you invite accountability into your life, you're saying, I take this seriously. You're giving someone else permission to hold you to your standard, not theirs. That's not punishment. That's trust. It means you're willing to be seen, not just when you succeed, but in the in-between moments when showing up feels hard. It's easy to hide behind independence. It's harder and braver to let someone walk with you through the process. Accountability doesn't make you weaker. It makes you visible. And when you're visible, your intentions are no longer private ideas, they become public declarations. That shift changes everything. It brings weight to your words. It reminds you that your actions don't just affect your own momentum, but the trust someone else placed in your journey. That's not pressure. That's partnership. There's a difference between being called out and being called forward. Accountability, when done with care, doesn't shame you. It challenges you. It doesn't say, you failed. It says, you're capable of more, and I'm not letting you forget that. Most people aren't suffering from too much criticism. They're suffering from too little expectation. The kind that says, I believe in who you're becoming, so I won't let you settle for who you've been. When you treat accountability like punishment, you begin to avoid it. You hide from check-ins. You make excuses. You pretend progress is happening when it's not. But when you reframe accountability as alignment, everything changes. You stop fearing it and start using it. It becomes less about pressure and more about permission. Permission to stay in integrity with the life you said you wanted to build. It's easy to be consistent when you feel inspired. The real test is whether you can be consistent when no one is clapping. That's where accountability plays its quiet role. It fills the gap between motivation and discipline. It asks, did you do what you said you'd do? Not to punish you, but to help you protect your promise. Because in a noisy world, it's easy to forget what matters. Accountability helps you remember. Some of the most successful people in the world don't have more talent. They have more structure. They don't rely on willpower alone. They build systems of accountability because they understand that growth requires more than intention. It requires reinforcement. It requires friction. And sometimes the simple knowledge that someone will ask, how did that go, is enough to keep you grounded in your goal. Accountability, when it's real, isn't about control. It's about connection. It's not there to monitor you. It's there to walk beside you. It's what turns your goals from private hopes into shared efforts. And when it's rooted in trust, not fear, it becomes one of the most powerful forms of support you can have on your path to becoming who you were meant to be. We're taught to wait for readiness, to move when the stars align, when confidence shows up, when fear disappears. But the truth is, readiness is a myth dressed up as maturity. No one ever really feels ready to do the hard, meaningful things. They just decide that waiting costs more than acting. The people who grow the most aren't the ones who felt prepared. They're the ones who moved anyway. Readiness is often confused with certainty. We think we need more information, more time, more proof that it'll work. But growth doesn't come with guarantees. Most of what we call readiness is just fear in disguise, fear asking for more time to stall. And while you wait to feel fully equipped, the moment passes, the opportunity fades, the edge dulls. You can prepare forever and still not feel ready to leap. The truth is, clarity comes after movement, not before it. You don't gain confidence by thinking. You gain it by doing. You can rehearse in your head 1,000 times, but nothing replaces the experience of trying, failing, adjusting, and trying again. Action teaches what preparation can't. The path reveals itself with each step, not before it. Readiness grows in the doing. You won't feel ready to have the tough conversation, start the project, take the risk, or leave what's comfortable. But you're not supposed to. Readiness isn't a prerequisite. It's a result. It shows up after you've already started, after you've taken the first shaky step, after you've proven to yourself that fear doesn't control your direction. And that moment, when you act without perfect confidence, is when real growth begins. Most of us are waiting for a version of ourselves that doesn't exist yet. A braver, more polished, more certain self. But the only way to become that version is to stop waiting for them to arrive. Courage isn't about feeling ready. It's about choosing to be responsible for what matters, even when your voice shakes or your hands tremble. Readiness doesn't build courage. Courage builds readiness. Feeling unready doesn't mean you're unqualified. It means you care. It means you're standing at the edge of something that matters enough to make you nervous. That's not a signal to stop. It's a sign you're exactly where you should be. If the next step didn't stretch you, it wouldn't change you. And if you wait until all the fear is gone, you'll never find out what you were capable of in the first place. Think back to every significant moment of progress in your life. Chances are you didn't feel ready for most of them, but you stepped in. You figured it out. You learned on the go. You discovered strength you didn't know you had. That's what makes progress honest. It doesn't happen when everything feels perfect. It happens when you act with imperfect belief in what's possible. You won't always feel ready to begin, to speak up, to lead, to risk, to stretch. But those are the moments that shape your future. Not because you were confident, but because you were willing. And willingness, more than readiness, is what turns intentions into momentum.